A woman slides a warning across a bar to the city's most dangerous man, and in one moment, her invisible life shatters forever. You think you know how this ends. You don't. What happens when the ghost who sees everything gets seen by the one person she should have stayed hidden from? When silence is survival and she chooses defiance? This isn't a love story. It's a war. And by the time you realize what's really happening, it'll be too late to look away. Stay until the end. Drop a like. Comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me show you how it started. The club smelled like expensive mistakes. Vigneto wasn't the kind of place you stumbled into. You got invited, vetted, or you didn't get in at all. The velvet ropes outside were theater. The real filter happened 3 layers deep, where men in tailored suits whispered into earpieces and faces got run through databases before you ever saw the bar. Alara Vance had worked there for 2 years and nobody knew her name. That was the point. She moved behind the mahogany like water, precise and unremarkable. Her hands mixing drinks she'd memorized the recipes for months ago. Vodka tonic, bourbon neat, champagne for the women who wanted to look occupied. She didn't make conversation, didn't smile unless it was required, didn't ask questions. The bartender who kept her head down and her mouth shut wasn't memorable, and in a place like Vigneto, invisible meant safe. The music throbbed low and constant, a bass line you felt in your ribs more than heard. Around her, the city's worst people pretended to be its best. Lawyers who'd buried evidence, businessmen who'd buried bodies, politicians who smiled at cameras and signed deals in blood after hours. They came here because Vigneto was neutral ground, a church for sinners who didn't believe in redemption. Alara believed in one thing: don't get involved. She wiped down the counter, her eyes tracking the room in fragments. A congressman arguing too loudly near the booth by the window. A woman in a silver dress laughing with her hand on someone else's husband. A server weaving through the crowd with a tray of something that cost more than Alara made in a week. Normal. Controlled chaos. Nothing she hadn't seen before. Then the energy shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. But the room inhaled and didn't exhale. The kind of collective tension that meant someone important had arrived. Conversations didn't stop. They got quieter, sharper. Eyes flicked toward the entrance and then away, fast, like looking too long might burn. Alara's hand stilled on the glass she was drying. Lorenzo Volkov walked in like gravity bent toward him. He wasn't tall enough to dominate a room by height, wasn't loud enough to demand it by voice, but every step he took carved space out of the air, and the crowd moved without realizing they were moving, bodies shifting just enough to let him pass. He wore black, suit, shirt, no tie, and the lack of color made him sharper somehow, like he'd been cut out of the world and pasted back in at higher contrast. 2 men flanked him. One was broad-shouldered, built like a wall. The other was lean, watchful, his hand resting too casually near his jacket. Alara didn't need to see the guns to know they were there. Volkov's face was all edges. Sharp jaw, dark eyes that didn't blink as often as they should. A scar, faint and old, traced the line of his left cheekbone, a reminder that he'd bled before and survived it. He wasn't handsome the way actors were handsome. He was handsome the way knives were handsome, functional, dangerous. He moved through the club without looking at anyone directly, but Alara could feel him cataloging everything. Who was here? Who wasn't? Who looked nervous? This was his city. These people were his assets, his enemies, his leverage. Vigneto wasn't neutral ground. It was his hunting ground. And he was heading toward the bar. Alara's pulse kicked up, just once before she buried it. She set the glass down, picked up another, kept her face blank. She'd served men like him before, men who treated silence like weakness and eye contact like invitation. The trick was to be competent and forgettable. Pour the drink, take the money, disappear. Volkov sat, not at the end of this bar where most of the power players liked to hold court, not in the center where he'd be surrounded. He chose the middle left, a position that let him see the entrance, the back hall, and the private booths all at once. Strategic. The 2 men with him stayed standing, bracketing him like parentheses. Alara approached, didn't wait for him to speak. "What are you drinking?" Her voice came out flat. Professional. No inflection. No personality. Exactly the way she'd trained it. Volkov's eyes lifted to hers. The world got very quiet. It wasn't that he looked at her. It was that he saw her. Most people looked past bartenders the way they looked past furniture, useful, interchangeable. Volkov's gaze landed on her face and stayed there, patient and unhurried, like he had all the time in the world to figure out what she was. Whiskey, he said. Redbreast. Neat. Irish. Single pot still. Expensive, but not the most expensive. A choice that said he knew quality but didn't need to prove it. Alara nodded once, turned, reached for the bottle on the top shelf and felt the weight of his attention on her back like a hand between her shoulder blades. She poured 2 fingers into a crystal glass, smooth and exact, no spillage, no hesitation. Set it in front of him without letting her fingers touch his. Volkov didn't pick it up. He leaned back slightly, one hand resting on the bar, the other loose in his lap. Waiting. For what? Alara didn't know. She didn't care. She stepped back, ready to move to the next customer, when the side door opened and a man walked in. He was young, mid-20s, wore a gray suit that didn't fit right, and a face that looked like it had been slapped too many times by life. Alara recognized him. Marco, one of the club's junior coordinators, the kind of guy who ran errands and kept his mouth shut and stayed off important people's radar. Except tonight, Marco looked like he was about to piss himself. He moved too fast, too stiff. His eyes darted to Volkov and away, then back again, and his hands were shaking just enough that when he set a folded napkin on the bar, 3 seats down, it slid an inch before settling. Alara's instincts prickled. She'd worked in enough shitholes before Vigneto to know what fear looked like. Real fear. The kind that made people do stupid things. Marco wasn't supposed to be at the bar. He was back of house, logistics. He had no reason to be out here unless someone sent him, and he was looking at Volkov's drink. Not at Volkov. At the glass. Alara's breath caught. Marco's hand dipped into his jacket pocket. Came out holding something small. A vial, maybe. A packet. She couldn't see clearly from where she stood, but she didn't need to. The motion was furtive. Guilty. His eyes swept the room once, twice, checking if anyone was watching. No one was, except her. Marco's hand hovered over Volkov's glass. And Alara broke her only rule. She moved. Fast. 3 steps down the bar, her hand shooting out and clamping down on Marco's wrist before he could tip whatever he was holding into the whiskey. His head snapped toward her, eyes wide, mouth opening in shock. "Don't," she said. One word. Quiet enough that no one else would hear over the music, loud enough that Marco went pale. Volkov's head turned, slowly, deliberately. His gaze moved from Marco to Alara, then down to where her hand was locked around the kid's wrist. The vial, small, glass, filled with something clear, trembled between Marco's fingers. The 2 bodyguards moved. The broad one's hand went to his jacket. The lean one stepped closer, his body angling to block the sight line from the rest of the club. Marco tried to pull away. Alara didn't let go. I wasn't... Marco stammered. "Shut up," Volkov said. His voice was quiet, conversational, the kind of tone you'd use to comment on the weather. But Marco shut up like someone had cut his vocal cords. Volkov stood, slowly. He reached out, plucked the vial from Marco's hand with 2 fingers, held it up to the light. The liquid inside caught the glow from the overhead fixtures, prismatic and wrong. "Ricin," Volkov said. Not a question. A diagnosis. Marco made a noise like a trapped animal. Volkov's eyes shifted to Alara. She still had Marco's wrist. Her knuckles were white. She didn't remember deciding to grab him. Her body had moved on instinct, the same instinct that kept her alive in places where hesitation got you killed. "Let him go," Volkov said. Alara released him. Marco stumbled back, hit the edge of a bar stool, nearly fell. The broad bodyguard caught him by the collar, yanked him upright, and Marco's legs gave out entirely. He sagged like a puppet with cut strings. Volkov pocketed the vial, looked at Alara. "You work here?" Not a question, a statement. "Yes." "How long?" 2 years. "Name?" She hesitated. Giving her name meant existing. Existing meant being remembered. Being remembered in a place like this by a man like him was a death sentence. But lying would be worse. "Alara." Volkov's mouth didn't move, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe? Or calculation. "You just saved my life, Alara." She said nothing. He tilted his head slightly, studying her the way you'd study a puzzle that didn't fit together right. Why? It was a good question. She didn't have a good answer. Why had she moved? Why had she broken 2 years of carefully constructed invisibility for a man she didn't know and shouldn't care about? Because watching someone die when you could stop it felt worse than staying silent. Because maybe, deep down, some stupid part of her still believed in doing the right thing. Because she was an idiot. Doesn't matter, she said. Volkov's smile was thin and sharp as a razor. It does. The lean bodyguard leaned in, whispered something in Volkov's ear. Volkov nodded once. His attention shifted back to Marco, who was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face as he shook his head over and over like he could rewind the last 5 minutes and make different choices. Who sent you? Volkov asked. Marco's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I can't. Wrong answer. The broad bodyguard's hand tightened on Marco's collar. The kid made a choking sound. They'll kill me, Marco gasped. If I talk, they'll kill you if you don't, Volkov said. The difference is how long it takes. Alara's stomach turned. She should walk away. Go back to wiping down glasses and pretending she hadn't just stepped into the middle of something that would get her killed. But her feet didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on Marco's face, watching him crumble in real time. Hawk, Marco whispered. Silas Hawk. He paid me. Said all I had to do was... His voice broke. I didn't want to. I swear I didn't... Volkov raised a hand. Marco went silent. Where is he? I don't know. I swear to God I don't know. He contacted me through a drop. I never met him, just messages, instructions, money. Volkov stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned to the lean bodyguard. Take him downstairs. Marco's eyes went huge. No, please, I told you everything. Downstairs, Volkov repeated. We'll finish this conversation somewhere quieter. The bodyguard dragged Marco toward the back hall. The kid thrashed once, uselessly, then went limp, sobbing as he disappeared through the door. The club kept moving around them. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. No one had noticed. Or if they had, they were smart enough to pretend they hadn't. Volkov turned back to Alara. She should have been scared. She was scared. But fear had teeth only if you fed it, and she'd learned a long time ago how to starve it into silence. You have a problem, Volkov said. I have several. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. You're visible now. She knew. God, she knew. The moment she'd grabbed Marco's wrist, she'd painted a target on her back. Anyone who wanted Volkov dead would want her dead too, either as a loose end or as leverage. She'd survived this long by being no one. Now she was someone who mattered to Lorenzo Volkov. I didn't ask for this, she said. No one ever does. He picked up the whiskey glass, studied it, set it back down without drinking. You're coming with me. Alara blinked. Excuse me? You're a witness, a liability. Until I know who Hawk is and how deep this goes, you're not safe here. His tone didn't change. Still calm, still conversational, like he was offering her a ride home instead of abducting her. You can walk out with me now, or my people will carry you. Your choice. That's not a choice. No, Volkov agreed. It's not. The broad bodyguard reappeared from the back hall, wiping his hands on a cloth. He looked at Volkov. Volkov nodded toward Alara. She's coming. Alara's heart slammed against her ribs. She looked around the club, at the faces that didn't look back, at the exits she'd memorized on her first day but couldn't reach now without getting stopped. She could scream, she could run, she could fight. All of those options ended the same way. Volkov stepped closer. Not touching her, not threatening. Just close enough that she could see the faint scar on his cheek, the way his jaw tightened when he waited for an answer. I don't hurt people without reason, he said quietly. You saved my life. That means something. What does it mean? It means you're worth keeping alive. It wasn't reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. Alara looked at the bar, at the bottles lined up like soldiers, at the life she'd built out of silence and survival, the small, invisible existence that had kept her breathing for 2 years. She looked at Volkov. If I go with you, she said, what happens to me? That depends on what you know. and whether anyone else knows you know it. Not an answer, a threat wrapped in logic. Alara exhaled, pulled off her apron, set it on the bar. Let's go. The car was black and sleek and smelled like leather and gunpowder. Alara sat in the back seat between the two bodyguards, Volkov up front with the driver. No one spoke. The city blurred past the tinted windows, neon signs, pedestrians, late-night traffic that parted for them like water around a shark. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs and willed them to stop. Fear was useless. Fear made you stupid. She needed to think, needed to figure out what she'd walked into and how to walk back out. But the deeper she thought, the less sense it made. Silas Hawke. She'd never heard the name before. Didn't know who he was or what he wanted or why he'd pay a low-level club employee to poison one of the most dangerous men in the city. Killing Volkov wasn't just bold. It was suicidal. You didn't go after someone like him unless you had an army behind you, or unless you wanted him to think you did. The car turned down a narrow street, then into an underground garage. The door rolled shut behind them with a hydraulic hiss. Alara's pulse spiked. Garages were where people disappeared, where bodies got dumped. Volkov got out first, opened her door himself. This way. She followed because there was no other option. They walked through concrete corridors lit by fluorescent strips, past unmarked doors and security cameras that tracked their movement. An elevator. Volkov pressed his palm to a scanner. The doors slid open. Up. 30 floors, 40. The numbers climbed until they hit the top and stopped. The doors opened onto a penthouse. Alara stepped out and her breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, a sprawl of lights and steel that stretched to the horizon. The space was massive. Open floor plan, minimalist furniture, dark wood, and glass and chrome. Expensive. Sterile. The kind of place that didn't feel lived in because the person who owned it didn't have time to live. Sit, Volkov said, gesturing to a leather couch. Alara sat. The bodyguards took positions by the door and the window. Volkov poured himself a drink from a bar cart. Different whiskey this time, something amber and unlabeled, and drank half of it in one pull. Then he looked at her. Tell me about Marco. I don't know anything about him. You grabbed his wrist before he poisoned my drink. That means you saw something. Alara hesitated, then nodded. He was nervous, moving wrong, kept looking at your glass instead of you. When he pulled out the vial, I just reacted. Yes. Volkov swirled the whiskey in his glass. You've seen people scared before. Not a question. Alara didn't answer. Volkov sat down across from her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. Where are you from, Alara? Does it matter? Everything matters. She met his eyes, held them. I grew up in a place where keeping your mouth shut kept you alive. I learned to watch people, read them. It's how I survived. And now? Now I'm here. Volkov smiled faintly. Not much of a survival strategy. I was doing fine until you walked in. Were you? The question landed heavier than it should have. Alara looked away, out at the city. Was she surviving or just existing? There was a difference. She'd been telling herself for 2 years that invisible was safe, that small was smart. But sitting here in this glass tower with a man who'd just dragged her out of her life and into his, she wasn't sure anymore. I need to know what you saw tonight, Volkov said. Everything, every detail. Why? Because whoever sent Marco will send someone else. And next time, they might succeed. Alara's chest tightened. You think this is bigger than one scared kid? I know it is. How? Volkov finished his drink, set the glass down. Because Silas Hawke doesn't exist. Alara frowned. Marco said what he was told to say. Hawke is a name, a ghost. I've heard it 3 times in the last year, always attached to things that shouldn't be possible. Deals that fall through at the last second. Allies who turn. Accidents that aren't accidents. He leaned back, his expression unreadable. Someone is using that name as cover. Someone smart. Someone who knows how I operate. And you think I can help you find them. I think you saw something tonight that I didn't. And I think if I let you walk away, you'll be dead by morning. Alara's stomach dropped. You're saying I'm bait. I'm saying you're leverage. If Hawke knows you stopped the poison, He'll come for you, either to silence you or to figure out what you know. Volkov stood, walked to the window. You stay here, under my protection. You help me reconstruct tonight, and when Hawk makes his move, we'll be ready. And if I say no, Volkov didn't turn around, then I'll have someone drive you home, and you can hope Hawk doesn't find you before I do. The silence stretched. Alara looked at the door, at the bodyguards, at the city beyond the glass. She thought about her apartment. One room, a bed, a lock that didn't work, the kind of place where people didn't ask questions because they didn't want answers. She thought about going back there, alone, waiting. She thought about Marco's face as they dragged him away. Okay, she said quietly. Volkov turned. I'll help. He nodded once. Smart. I'm not smart, Alara said. I'm terrified. Good, Volkov said. Fear keeps you sharp. He crossed the room, stopped in front of her, extended a hand. Alara looked at it, then took it. His grip was firm, warm, human. For the first time since she'd grabbed Marco's wrist, she felt like maybe she wasn't going to die tonight. But the night was young, and somewhere in the city, Silas Hawk was watching. They worked through the night. Volkov pulled up security footage from Vigneto on a massive screen mounted to the wall. Grainy, black and white, shot from 3 different angles. Alara sat beside him, her eyes burning from staring at the monitor, as he rewound and replayed the same 30 seconds over and over. There, she said, pointing. He checks his phone right before he walks to the bar. Volkov paused the footage, zoomed in. Marco's face filled the screen, pixelated and nervous, his thumb swiping across a cracked phone screen. Can you pull the message? Alara asked. Already tried. Phone's encrypted. Wiped remotely the second we grabbed him. Volkov's jaw tightened. Hawk's thorough. What about Marco? Did he... She stopped. Didn't want to finish the question. Volkov's expression didn't change. He's alive. For now. For now. He's more useful breathing, but if he doesn't give me something I can use, He let the sentence hang. Alara swallowed. Looked back at the screen. They went through the footage frame by frame, Marco entering through the side door, Marco at the bar, Marco reaching for the vial, Alara's hand shooting out. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds, but each second was dissected, analyzed, replayed until Alara could see it in her sleep. Who else was watching him? Volkov asked. Alara frowned, rewound the footage, watched the crowd. Most people weren't paying attention. A couple near the booth, a woman at the bar scrolling through her phone, a server passing by with drinks. But there, in the back corner, a man in a dark coat, half hidden by shadow. He wasn't looking at Marco. He was looking at Volkov. And when Alara grabbed Marco's wrist, the man turned and walked out. There, she said, pointing. Him. Volkov leaned in, zoomed. The man's face was angled away from the camera, obscured by the brim of a hat in the poor lighting. Run it, Volkov said to someone off screen. One of the bodyguards, the lean one, stepped forward with a tablet. A few taps. The image sharpened slightly, but not enough to make out features. He knew, Alara said quietly. He was watching to see if it worked. Volkov's eyes stayed locked on the screen, and when it didn't, he left. To report back. To Hawk. Alara's pulse quickened. Can we track him? Follow him on the footage outside? Volkov shook his head. He disappeared 2 blocks away. No cameras, no trail. He straightened. But you're right. He was there, which means Hawk has people inside Vigneto. People I didn't know about. The weight of that settled over the room like fog. Volkov's empire was built on control. Information. Knowing who worked for him, who worked against him, and who was stupid enough to try playing both sides. If Hawk had infiltrated Vigneto, one of Volkov's own territories, then the rot went deeper than one poisoned drink. How many people do you trust? Alara asked. Volkov looked at her. 3, and you're not one of them. Fair. He almost smiled. You're honest. That's rarer than you think. Or I'm just bad at lying. No. Volkov's gaze sharpened. You're good at surviving. That takes a different kind of intelligence. Alara didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Volkov turned off the screen. The room dimmed. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten, a thin gray line bleeding along the horizon. "Get some sleep," he said. "We'll start again in a few hours." "Start what?" "Tearing apart everyone who was in that club tonight. Someone knows something, and I'm going to find out who." He walked toward the hallway, stopped, glanced back. "The bedroom's down the hall. Second door on the right. Bathroom's attached. Don't try to leave." "Wasn't planning on it." "Good." He left. Alara sat in the silence, staring at the dark screen, her reflection staring back. She looked small, tired, scared. She looked alive. For now, she stood, walked down the hall, found the bedroom. It was as stark as the rest of the penthouse. King-sized bed, white sheets, a window that overlooked the city. She locked the door out of habit, knowing it wouldn't stop anyone if they wanted in, but needing the illusion of control. She lay down on top of the covers, fully clothed, and closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come. Her mind replayed the night in fragments. Marco's shaking hands, the vial, Volkov's voice, the man in the dark coat, Silas Hawke, a name, a ghost. And now, whether she wanted it or not, Alara was part of the hunt. She stared at the ceiling and waited for dawn. Morning came with the sharp knock of knuckles on wood. Alara jerked awake, disoriented, her heart hammering. Sunlight streamed through the window, bright and unforgiving. She'd fallen asleep at some point without realizing it. "Up," a voice said from the other side of the door, the lean bodyguard. "Boss wants you." Alara sat up, ran a hand through her hair. "Give me 5 minutes." No response. Footsteps retreating. She stumbled into the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, stared at herself in the mirror. Same face. Different life. 24 hours ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was locked in a penthouse with a man who killed people for a living, hunting a ghost who wanted him dead. She should have kept her head down, but she hadn't, and now she had to live with it. She walked out into the main room. Volkov was at the table, coffee in hand, studying a tablet. He didn't look up when she entered. "Sit." Alara sat. He slid the tablet across the table. On the screen was a photo. A man. Mid-40s, graying hair, expensive suit, familiar. "You know him?" Volkov asked. Alara frowned, studied the face. "Maybe. I've seen him at the club, not a regular, but yeah, he's been in a few times. Name's Alexander Rostenkov. Politician, clean record. Too clean." Volkov's fingers drummed against the table. "He was at Vigneto last night, left 20 minutes before I arrived." "You think he's connected?" "I think he's careful, and people who are that careful usually have something to hide." Alara looked at the photo again. Rostenkov's smile was polished, professional, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to remember everything you can about him, every time he came in, who he talked to, what he ordered, how he paid." Alara closed her eyes, let her mind rewind. Rostenkov. 3 visits, maybe 4. Always alone, always sat in the back booth, the one with the privacy screen, ordered vodka martinis, paid cash, tipped well but not excessively, stayed an hour, never caused trouble. But there was something. She opened her eyes. He always left his phone on the table, screen up, like he was waiting for a message. Volkov leaned forward. "Did he get one?" "Every time. He'd check it, read something, then delete it." "You saw him delete it?" "I saw him swipe. I didn't see what it said." Volkov's jaw tightened. He picked up his own phone. Made a call. "Pull Rostenkov's phone records. Last 3 months. I want every call, every text, every fucking email." He hung up, looked at Alara. "Good memory. It's how I stay alive." "Keep it up." The tablet buzzed. Volkov glanced at it. His expression darkened. "What?" Alara asked. He turned the tablet toward her. On the screen was a news headline. "Body found in river, identified as Marco Delgado." Alara's stomach dropped. "They killed him," she whispered. "They sent a message," Volkov corrected. "Marco talked, so they made sure he couldn't talk again. But he was with you. He was—" Her voice cracked. "He was protected. Volkov's eyes were cold. No one's protected. Not completely. Alara stood, paced to the window, pressed her forehead against the glass. The city stretched below, indifferent and vast. They knew, she said quietly. They knew you had him, and they still got to him. Yes. How? That's what I'm going to find out. Alara turned. You have a leak. Volkov didn't deny it. I have a lot of leaks. The question is which one matters. And what happens when you find out? Volkov stood, walked over to her, stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I close it, he said quietly. She believed him. What do you need from me? She asked. I need you to do what you did last night. Watch, listen, see things other people miss. He paused. And I need you to stay alive. I'll do my best. Your best better be good enough. He walked away, left her standing at the window, staring out at a city that suddenly felt a lot smaller and a lot more dangerous. They spent the next 2 days pulling apart Volkov's world, piece by piece. Alara sat in on interrogations, watched Volkov question his own people, lieutenants, drivers, security, men who'd worked for him for years, men who swore loyalty and bled for him. And Volkov tore through them like paper. He didn't shout, didn't threaten. He just asked questions, simple, direct. And when the answers didn't line up, when the body language shifted or the eyes looked away for half a second too long, he knew. 2 men didn't walk out of those rooms. Alara didn't ask what happened to them. She focused on what she could control. She reviewed footage, cross-referenced schedules, built timelines. She had a mind for patterns, for details that didn't fit, and Volkov used that. He trusted her. Not fully. Not yet. But enough to let her see the machinery of his empire, the gears and levers that kept it running. And she learned. Volkov wasn't just a gangster, he was a system, every move calculated, every relationship transactional. He didn't rule through fear alone. He ruled through information. Knowing more than everyone else. Seeing further. Planning 3 steps ahead while his enemies were still thinking about step 1. But even systems had flaws, and Silas Hawk had found one. On the 3rd day, Volkov's phone rang. He answered, listened. His face went flat. Where? He said. A pause. I'm on my way. He hung up, looked at Alara. Get your coat. What happened? Hawk just made his next move. What? The theater was old, Art Deco, the kind of place that used to be beautiful before the city forgot about it. Now it was a shell, cracked plaster, faded gold trim, a marquee with half the letters missing. Volkov's car pulled up to the side entrance. The bodyguards got out first, checked the perimeter, gave the signal. Volkov stepped out. Alara followed. Inside, the air smelled like dust and rot. The main hall was cavernous, rows of broken seats facing a stage shrouded in shadow. A single spotlight illuminated the center, and standing in that light was a man. Not Hawk. Alara knew that immediately. This man was too young, too nervous. He wore a cheap suit and held a phone in one trembling hand. Mr. Volkov, the man said. His voice echoed. I was told to give you a message. Volkov stopped 10 feet away. I'm listening. The man swallowed, looked at the phone, read from the screen. You're looking for a ghost, but ghosts don't die. They multiply. Every move you make, I'm 3 steps ahead. Every person you trust, I've already turned or will. You think you're hunting me. You're wrong. I'm hunting you. And when I'm done, there won't be anything left of your empire but ash. The man's hand shook harder. That's it. That's all he said. Volkov didn't move. Who sent you? I don't know. I swear. Someone called. Said to come here. Said to deliver the message. I never saw his face. Did he pay you? Yes. How much? 5,000. Volkov nodded. Keep it. The man blinked. What? Keep the money. Walk out. Forget you were here. The man didn't wait. He bolted, footsteps echoing as he disappeared into the dark. Volkov stood in the silence. Alara stepped closer. It's a taunt. It's a distraction, Volkov said. He wanted me here. Away from the penthouse. Away from my people. Alara's pulse spiked. Then we need to... Volkov's phone rang. He answered. Talk. A voice on the other end. Fast. Panicked. Volkov's expression didn't change, but his knuckles went white around the phone. He hung up. What? Alara asked. Volkov turned, started walking toward the exit. One of my warehouses just burned. Alara followed. Hawk? No. Volkov's voice was ice. One of mine. What do you mean? He stopped, looked at her. Someone on my payroll set the fire. Someone I trusted. His eyes were black, empty. Sergio. The name meant nothing to Alara, but the way Volkov said it, like a curse, like a wound, told her everything. Who's Sergio? Volkov didn't answer. He walked out into the sunlight, and Alara knew. The hunt had just turned inward. The warehouse was still smoking when they arrived. Black columns rose into the gray sky, thick and oily, carrying the stench of burned chemicals and melted plastic. Fire trucks lined the street, their lights strobing red and blue across the faces of bystanders who kept a careful distance. This wasn't the kind of fire you got close to unless you were paid to. Volkov's car stopped half a block away. He got out before it fully halted, his coat snapping behind him as he strode toward the perimeter. The bodyguards flanked him. Alara followed, her lungs tightening against the acrid air. A man in a soot-stained shirt intercepted them, one of Volkov's. His face was drawn, eyes red-rimmed from smoke or grief, or both. Boss, he said, it's bad. How bad? Total loss. Everything inside, gone. Product, equipment, records, and... He hesitated. 3 men didn't make it out. Volkov's jaw set. Names. The man rattled them off. Alara didn't recognize them, but Volkov did. She could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, the way his fingers curled into fists and then slowly uncurled. Where's Sergio? Volkov asked. Gone. Disappeared right before the fire started. Security footage shows him in the loading bay, then nothing. He vanished. Volkov stared at the smoldering ruin. Flames still licked at the skeleton of the building, devouring what little remained. Firefighters sprayed water into the heart of it, but it was too late. The damage was done. How long? Volkov asked quietly. Sir? How long has he been working for Hawk? The man paled. I don't know. I didn't even know he was... Find out. Volkov's voice was soft, deadly. I want every transaction he made in the last year, every phone call, every person he talked to. I want to know what he ate for breakfast and who he fucked at night. Understand? Yes, sir. Volkov turned, walked back toward the car. Alara caught up with him. Who is he? She asked. Sergio. Volkov didn't look at her. Someone I trusted. That's not an answer. He stopped, turned. His eyes were dark and hollow, like something essential had been carved out of them. Sergio's been with me for 8 years, he said. He ran logistics, inventory, distribution. He knew where everything was, every shipment, every safe house, every weak point in my operation. His mouth twisted. I trusted him with my life. Alara's stomach sank. And now he's handed all of that to Hawk. Yes. Why? Money. Leverage. Fear. Does it matter? Volkov's voice was flat. He made a choice, and now I'll make mine. He got back in the car. Alara stood there for a moment, staring at the fire, feeling the heat against her face. 3 men were dead, burned alive because someone they trusted had sold them out. And somewhere in this city, Sergio was counting his blood money and waiting for Volkov's world to collapse. She got in the car. They drove in silence. Back at the penthouse, Volkov paced like a caged animal. Alara sat on the couch, watching him wear a path into the hardwood floor. The lean bodyguard, she'd learned his name was Anton, stood by the window, arms crossed. The broad one, Dmitri, was downstairs coordinating the search for Sergio. Volkov's phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Every few minutes, another update, another dead end. Sergio had vanished like smoke, and every lead turned to ash in their hands. He planned this, Volkov said, more to himself than to her. He's been planning it for months, maybe longer. Alara leaned forward. Then he left a trail, Nobody plans something this big without making mistakes. You don't know Sergio. I know people, and people are arrogant, especially when they think they've won. Volkov stopped pacing, looked at her. You think he made a mistake? I think he's human, and humans always do. Volkov's phone rang. He snatched it up. What? He listened. His expression shifted. Not relief? Not anger. Something colder. Send it to me. He hung up, pulled up something on his tablet, turned it toward Alara. Security footage, grainy. Time-stamped 3 hours before the fire. It showed Sergio in the warehouse loading bay, talking to someone. The angle was bad. The other person's face was obscured by shadow and the brim of a hat. But Alara recognized the posture. The coat. That's him, she said. The man from Viñedo. The one watching Marco. Volkov rewound the footage, paused it, zoomed in. The man's hand was visible, extended toward Sergio. In his palm was something small, metallic. Sergio took it, pocketed it. What is that? Alara asked. Detonator, Volkov said. Remote trigger for the incendiary devices he planted. Alara's breath caught. Sergio set the fire himself, and this man gave him the tools to do it. Volkov's fingers tightened on the tablet, which means Hawk was there, 3 hours ago, in my warehouse. Can we track him from there? Already tried. He disappears 2 blocks away, same as before. Volkov set the tablet down. But now we know what he looks like. Posture, build, movement pattern. It's not much, but it's something. Anton stepped forward. Boss, we've got Rostankov's phone records. Volkov's head snapped up. And 3 calls to an unlisted number in the last month. Short. Less than a minute each. Always late at night. Trace it. Already did. Burner phone. Triangulated to different locations each time, but Anton hesitated. One of the locations was 2 blocks from the warehouse. Yesterday. The room went silent. Volkov's voice was a blade. Rostankov. Alara's pulse quickened. You think he's working with Hawk? I think he's neck deep in this. Volkov grabbed his coat. Anton, get the car. We're paying the councilman a visit. Now? Alara said. It's the middle of the night. Volkov's smile was sharp and cruel. Exactly. Oh, Rostankov lived in a brownstone on the east side, the kind of neighborhood where money whispered instead of shouted, tree-lined streets, wrought iron fences, security cameras disguised as porch lights. Volkov's car pulled up across the street, killed the engine. The darkness swallowed them whole. Wait here, Volkov said to Alara. Like hell. He looked at her. This isn't a conversation. This is an interrogation, and it's going to get ugly. I've seen ugly. Not like this. Alara held his gaze. You brought me into this. You said I see things other people miss, so let me see. Volkov studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Stay behind me. Don't talk unless I tell you to. They got out. Anton picked the lock on the front door with practiced efficiency. No alarms. Rostankov was either arrogant or stupid, probably both. Inside, the house was dark. Expensive furniture, hardwood floors, framed photos of Rostankov shaking hands with people who mattered. A life built on appearances. Volkov moved through the house like a shadow. Alara followed, her heart hammering against her ribs. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like a gunshot. They found Rostankov in the bedroom. He was asleep, alone, one arm thrown over his face, snoring softly. Volkov walked over, pressed the barrel of a gun against Rostankov's temple. Rostankov's eyes shot open. Don't move, Volkov said quietly. Don't scream. Don't even breathe too loud. Rostankov went rigid. His eyes darted to Volkov's face, then to the gun, then back. Volkov, he whispered. What is this? A reckoning. Volkov stepped back slightly, keeping the gun trained. Sit up, slowly. Rostankov obeyed. He was wearing silk pajamas, his hair mussed, his face pale with fear. He looked smaller than he did in his photos. More human. I haven't done anything, Rostankov stammered. You've done plenty. Volkov gestured with the gun. Who's Silas Hawk? Rostankov's face went blank. I don't know what you're... Volkov's hand moved, fast. The butt of the gun cracked against Rostankov's jaw. The man cried out, sprawling sideways, blood trickling from his split lip. Try again, Volkov said. Rostankov coughed, spat blood onto the white sheets. I don't know, I swear. I've never heard that name. You called a burner phone 3 times last month. That phone was tracked near my warehouse yesterday, right before it burned. Volkov leaned closer. So either you're working with Hawk, or you're working with someone who is. Either way, you're lying. Rostankov's hands trembled. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Rostankov looked at Alara, at Anton, at the gun. His shoulders sagged. I was being blackmailed, he said quietly. Volkov didn't lower the gun. By who? I don't know. A man. He called me. Said he had evidence, photos, of me with... Rostankov's voice cracked. With someone I shouldn't have been with. He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd release them, ruin me. Cooperate how? Information. He wanted to know about you, your movements, your properties. I didn't give him much, just small things. Things he could have found out anyway. Like where my warehouse was. Rostankov flinched. I didn't know he'd burn it, I swear. I thought he just wanted leverage. I didn't think... You didn't think, Volkov said. That's your problem. He cocked the gun. Rostankov's eyes went wide. Wait, I can help you. I can identify him. The man who called me. If you show me a picture, You never saw his face. No, but his voice, I'd recognize his voice. Volkov considered this, then lowered the gun slightly. Who else knows you were helping him? No one, I swear. He said if I told anyone, he'd kill me. And my family. Smart man. Volkov glanced at Anton. Get him up. We're taking him with us. Rostankov's face went white. Where? Where are you taking me? Somewhere we can have a longer conversation. No, please. I told you everything Volkov pressed the gun back against Rostankov's forehead. You told me what you think I want to hear. Now I'm going to find out what you're not telling me. Anton hauled Rostankov to his feet. The politician stumbled, nearly fell, caught himself against the bedpost. Get dressed, Volkov said. Rostankov dressed with shaking hands. Pants, shirt, no shoes. Anton didn't give him time to find any. They walked him out of the house and into the car. Rostankov sat between Alara and Anton, his breathing ragged, his face slick with sweat. Alara didn't look at him. She stared out the window, watching the city blur past, and wondered how many lines she'd crossed tonight, how many more she'd cross before this was over. They took Rostankov to a building on the industrial edge of the city. No signs, no lights, just a concrete shell with steel doors and the kind of silence that pressed against your eardrums. Inside, the air was cold, damp. It smelled like rust and old blood. Volkov shoved Rostankov into a chair. Anton zip-tied his wrist to the armrests. Rostankov didn't fight. He was past fighting. He just sat there, shaking, tears streaming down his face. I told you everything, he whispered. Please, I have a daughter. She's 12. If something happens to me, then you should have thought about her before you sold me out, Volkov said. He pulled out his phone, played a recording, a voice. Male, calm, detached. You'll provide the information we discussed. Warehouse locations, security protocols, personnel schedules. In return, your secrets stay buried. Refuse and your life ends. Not quickly, not cleanly. Do we have an understanding? Rostankov's voice, shaky and desperate. Yes. I understand. Volkov stopped the recording. That's you. 3 weeks ago. Rostankov sobbed. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Volkov crouched in front of him. You chose yourself. Now 3 of my men are dead because of it. I didn't know. I swear. I didn't know he'd... You didn't care. Volkov's voice was ice. You cared about your reputation, your career, your family. You didn't care about mine. He stood, looked at Anton. Make him talk. Anton stepped forward. Alara's stomach turned. Wait. Volkov looked at her. Let me try first, she said. Try what? talking to him, without... She glanced at Anton. Without that. Volkov's eyes narrowed. You think he'll tell you something he won't tell me? I think fear makes people stupid, and right now he's terrified. Let me calm him down. Let me ask the right questions. You're not an interrogator. No, but I'm good at reading people. She met Volkov's gaze. Give me 10 minutes. Volkov stared at her, then stepped back. 10 minutes. Alara approached Rostankov, pulled up a chair, sat down facing him. Look at me, she said quietly. Rostankov's head lifted. His eyes were red, broken. I'm not going to hurt you, Alara said, but I need you to think, really think. The man who called you, did he ever slip, say anything that wasn't part of the script? Mention a name? A place? Rostankov shook his head. No, he was careful. Always. What about background noise? When he called, did you hear anything? Traffic, music, voices? Rostankov's brow furrowed. I don't know. Maybe. I wasn't paying attention. Try to remember. Close your eyes. Rostankov obeyed. Think about the last call, Alara said. You're holding the phone. You hear his voice. What else do you hear? Rostankov's breathing slowed. His face scrunched in concentration. There was something in the background, faint. What? A bell. Like a church bell. No. Not a church. A clock tower. Ringing the hour. Alara's pulse quickened. How many chimes? 10, I think, or 11. It was late. Anything else? Water. I heard water, like a fountain. Or a river. Alara looked at Volkov. There's only one clock tower near running water in this city. Volkov's expression sharpened. The old district, near the bridge. That's where he was calling from. Volkov turned to Anton. Pull up a map. I want every building within earshot of that tower. Anton pulled out a tablet, started typing. Alara turned back to Rostankov. You did good. Thank you. Rostankov's eyes opened. Does that mean you'll let me go? Volkov answered before Alara could. No. Rostankov's face crumpled. But I won't kill you, Volkov added. Not yet. You stay here until I verify your information. If it checks out, you live. If it doesn't... He let the sentence hang. He walked over to Alara, lowered his voice. That was smart. It was basic. Most people don't think when they're scared. You do. His gaze held hers. That's useful. I'm not doing this to be useful to you. Then why are you doing it? Alara hesitated. Because if I don't, more people die. And I'm tired of watching people die. Volkov's expression softened, just for a moment, just enough for her to see the fracture beneath the armor. Get some rest, he said. We move at dawn. Alara didn't rest. She sat in the car outside the building, staring at the city lights, trying to quiet the noise in her head. Rostankov's sobs, the smell of smoke from the warehouse, Marco's face as they dragged him away. She'd told herself for years that staying invisible kept her safe, that if she just kept her head down and didn't ask questions, she'd survive. But survival wasn't living, it was just not dying. And now she was in the middle of a war she didn't start, hunting a ghost who'd killed more people than she could count, working for a man who saw her as a tool. She should have been terrified. She was terrified. But beneath the terror was something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The door opened. Volkov slid into the seat beside her. Can't sleep? He asked. Can you? Not in a long time. They sat in silence. Why do you do this? Alara asked quietly. Do what? All of it. The empire, the control, the killing. She looked at him. What's the point? Volkov stared out at the city. You know what the worst thing about power is. What? Once you have it, you can't let it go. Because the moment you do, someone takes it, and they use it to destroy everything you built. He exhaled slowly. I didn't choose this life because I wanted it. I chose it because the alternative was worse. What was the alternative? Being the one who gets destroyed. Alara understood that more than she wanted to. What about Sergio? She asked. Did he choose this? Volkov's jaw tightened. Sergio chose wrong. And now you're going to kill him. Yes. Even though he was loyal to you for 8 years? Especially because of that. Volkov turned to her. Loyalty isn't a feeling, it's a contract. He broke it. Now he pays the price. And if you're wrong, if he had a reason, if Hawk forced him the same way he forced Rostankov, then he should have come to me. Volkov's voice was hard. I could have protected him. Instead, he ran. And running is guilt. Alara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that people ran for 100 reasons, that fear wasn't the same as betrayal, but she knew it wouldn't matter. In Volkov's world, there was no room for second chances. What happens when you find Hawk? She asked. I end him. And then what? Then I rebuild. And me? Volkov looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as a tool, not as leverage, as a person. That depends on you, he said quietly. On whether I'm useful? On whether you want to stay. The words hung in the air between them. Alara's heart hammered. Why would I stay? Because you're good at this. Better than you think. He leaned closer. And because I think you're tired of being invisible. He was right. And that terrified her more than anything else. Dawn came fast and cold. They converged on the old district with 6 cars and 20 men. Volkov rode in the lead vehicle, Alara beside him, Anton in the driver's seat. The streets were empty, the city still asleep, the only sound the hum of engines and the crackle of radios. The clock tower loomed ahead, its face dark, its hands frozen at 3:30. Around it, old buildings crouched like tombstones, warehouses, factories, places that used to matter before the city moved on. Anton pulled up to a 3-story building with boarded windows and a rusted fire escape. This one matches the acoustics. Water main runs underneath. You'd hear it from the upper floors. Volkov studied the building. Any movement? Thermal shows 2 heat signatures, 3rd floor. 2? Could be Sergio. Could be Hawk. Volkov's hand went to his gun. Let's find out. They moved in fast. Quiet. No sirens. No shouts, just the soft crunch of boots on gravel and the click of safeties being released. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the building was gutted. No furniture, no lights, just exposed beams and graffiti-stained walls. The stairs groaned under their weight as they climbed. 2nd floor, clear. 3rd floor. Volkov signaled. The men fanned out. Alara stayed behind him, her breathing shallow, her hands clenched. A door at the end of the hall closed. Volkov approached, pressed his ear to it, listened. Voices, muffled, arguing. He looked back at Anton, nodded. Anton kicked the door open. Inside, 2 men spun toward them. One was Sergio. He looked smaller than Alara expected, mid-30s, thinning hair, wide, panicked eyes. He held a duffel bag in one hand, and when he saw Volkov, he dropped it. The other man moved fast, too fast. He grabbed Sergio, yanked him backward, pressed a gun to his head. Don't, the man said. Alara's breath stopped. It was him. The man from the footage. The man in the dark coat. But it wasn't Hawk. She could see it in his posture, the desperation, the fear. This man wasn't orchestrating anything. He was following orders. Let him go, Volkov said. No. The man's voice shook. You let us walk, or I put a bullet in his brain. You do that, and you're dead before he hits the ground. Then we all die. Volkov's gun didn't waver. Works for me, Sergio whimpered. Please, please, Lorenzo, I didn't want this. They made me. They said they'd kill my sister. I had to... Shut up, the man hissed. Volkov's eyes never left the gunman. Where's Hawk? Fuck you. Wrong answer. Volkov fired. The bullet took the man in the shoulder. He screamed, staggered, his grip on Sergio loosening. Sergio lurched forward, and Anton grabbed him, yanked him away. The gunman hit the floor, clutching his shoulder, blood pooling beneath him. Volkov walked over, pressed his boot against the wound. The man screamed louder. Where's Hawk? Volkov repeated. The man gasped, sobbed. I don't know, I swear. I've never met him. He just just sends messages, tells us what to do. I don't know who he is. Volkov pressed harder. The gala, the man choked out. He's going to the gala, tomorrow night. That's all I know. That's all he told me. Volkov's expression didn't change. What gala? The mayor's fundraiser, City Hall. He said that's where it ends. Volkov stepped back, looked at Anton. Get him medical attention, then lock him up with Rostankov. Anton nodded, dragged the man out. Volkov turned to Sergio. Sergio was on his knees, hands up, tears streaming down his face. Lorenzo, he whispered. Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They had my sister. They were going to... Where is she now? Volkov asked. Sergio blinked. What? Your sister, where is she? I don't know. They said they'd let her go if I did what they wanted. Volkov crouched, looked Sergio in the eyes. They lied. Sergio's face went white. Your sister's been dead for 3 days, Volkov said quietly. They killed her the moment you agreed to work for them. You burned my warehouse for nothing. Sergio made a sound like a wounded animal. He doubled over, retching, his whole body shaking. Volkov stood. Take him downstairs. Dmitri hauled Sergio up. The man didn't resist. He was already gone, hollowed out, a shell. Alara watched him disappear down the stairs. Then she looked at Volkov. Was that true? About his sister? Volkov's face was unreadable. Does it matter? Yes. He turned to her. She's alive, living in Nebraska, doesn't even know Sergio's in trouble. Alara's chest tightened. You lied to him. I broke him. There's a difference. Is there? Volkov's eyes were cold. He betrayed me. Got 3 of my men killed. If he thinks his sister's dead, maybe he'll think twice before making another deal with the devil. Or maybe he'll put a bullet in his own head. Then I'll save myself the trouble. Alara stepped back. You're a bastard. Yes. Volkov's voice didn't rise, didn't fall. But I'm an honest one. He walked past her down the stairs, and Alara stood alone in the empty room, staring at the blood on the floor. She'd crossed another line tonight, and she didn't know how to get back. The car ride back was silent. Alara stared out the window, her mind spinning. The gala. Tomorrow night. Hawk would be there, and Volkov was going to walk straight into it. It's a trap, she said suddenly. Volkov didn't look at her. I know. Then why are you going? Because it's the only move he's giving me. Volkov's jaw tightened. He wants me there, in public, surrounded by witnesses. He's planning something big. Then don't go. If I don't, he wins. He makes me look weak, makes my enemies bold. I can't afford that. You also can't afford to die. Volkov finally looked at her. I'm not planning to. Plans don't mean shit when someone's pointing a gun at your head. Then I'll point one back. Alara shook her head. You're insane. Probably. She laughed. It came out bitter. And you're dragging me into this. You dragged yourself in the moment you stopped that drink. He was right. She knew he was right. But knowing didn't make it easier. What do you need from me? She asked. Volkov studied her. I need you to come with me tomorrow night. Alara's eyes widened. To the gala? Yes. Why? Because Hawk knows my face, knows my people, but he doesn't know you. You can move through that crowd, watch, listen, see things I can't. You want me to be bait. I want you to be my eyes. Same thing. Volkov's expression softened, just slightly. I won't let anything happen to you. You can't promise that. No, but I'll die trying. The words landed heavier than they should have. Alara stared at him, at the scar on his cheek, at the exhaustion in his eyes, at the man who'd built an empire on blood and lies and somehow still believed he could protect one person who didn't belong in his world. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, I'll go. Volkov nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. They spent the next 24 hours preparing. Volkov pulled every file, every contact, every piece of intelligence on the gala. Guest list, seating chart, security protocols, exits, blind spots. He studied it like a battlefield. Alara studied the people, faces, names, connections, who hated who owed who had secrets worth killing for. The gala wasn't just a fundraiser, it was a stage, and everyone on that stage had a role. She memorized them all. By the time night fell, she felt like she could navigate the room with her eyes closed. Volkov handed her a dress. Black. Simple. Elegant. "Put this on," he said. Alara raised an eyebrow. "Where did you get this?" "I have people." Creepy. Efficient. She went to change. When she emerged, Volkov was waiting in the main room, dressed in a tuxedo. He looked different, polished, dangerous in a new way. He looked at her. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then, "You clean up well." "So do you." They stood there, two people who didn't belong in fancy clothes, about to walk into a room full of sharks. "Ready?" Volkov asked. Alara's heart pounded. "No." "Good. Neither am I." He offered his arm. She took it, and together they walked into the fire. The gala was everything Alara expected, and worse. City Hall had been transformed into something out of a dream, or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, men in tuxedos and women in gowns that cost more than most people made in a year. Champagne flowed, laughter echoed. Conversations hummed with the kind of polite venom only the rich could afford. Volkov moved through the crowd like he owned it. Maybe he did. People parted for him, smiled, shook his hand, pretended they weren't afraid. Alara stayed close, her eyes scanning faces, looking for anything out of place. And then she saw him. Rostankov. He stood near the far wall, talking to a woman in a red dress. He looked calm, composed, like he hadn't been zip-tied to a chair 12 hours ago. Alara's pulse spiked. "Volkov." He followed her gaze. His expression hardened. "He's supposed to be locked up." "Then how is he here?" Volkov's hand went to his jacket. Anton appeared at his side. "Boss, we've got a problem. I see it. There's more. Sergio's gone." Volkov's head snapped toward Anton. "What?" "Someone broke him out 2 hours ago, killed the guards. Sergio's in the wind." Volkov's jaw clenched. "Hawk." "Has to be." Alara's mind raced. Rostankov, Sergio, both here, both pieces in Hawk's game. "It's happening now," she said. "Whatever he's planning, it's happening now." Volkov's eyes swept the room. "Find them, both of them, and find Hawk." "How? We don't even know what he looks like." Alara's breath caught. Because she did. She'd been staring at patterns for days, watching footage, studying people. And in all of it, one face kept showing up. Not obviously, not always in frame, but there, in the background, watching. She turned, scanned the crowd, and there he was, standing near the stage, talking to the mayor. Tall, well-dressed, mid-40s, graying hair, unremarkable, except for his eyes. Cold, calculating, familiar. "There," Alara whispered. Volkov followed her gaze. The man looked up, saw them, and smiled. Volkov moved, fast, but not fast enough. The lights went out, screams erupted, gunfire cracked through the dark, and Alara realized too late that they'd walked straight into the trap. Silas Hawke wasn't just at the gala. He owned it. And now, in the chaos and the dark, with bullets flying and bodies falling, Volkov reached for Alara's hand. And everything she thought she knew shattered. Volkov's hand closed around Alara's wrist with enough force to bruise. The darkness was absolute. Not the soft dim of lowered lights, but the suffocating black of a power cut, swallowing 300 people whole. The screams came in waves, sharp, panicked, animal. Bodies collided. Glass shattered. Someone fired again, the muzzle flash painting the chaos in strobe light fragments. "Stay down," Volkov hissed. He pulled her toward the floor. Alara's knees hit marble, the impact jarring up through her bones. Her dress tore. She didn't care. Around them, the gala had become a stampede. People ran without knowing where, trampled without seeing who. The air reeked of perfume and gunpowder and fear. Another shot. Closer this time. The bullet punched through a champagne fountain 2 feet from Alara's head. Crystal exploded. Liquid sprayed across her face, cold and sharp. Volkov moved. He dragged her behind a pillar, his body covering hers, one hand on her head forcing it down. His breath was hot against her ear. When the emergency lights come on, you run. Understand? Where? Anywhere but here. What about you? I'm ending this. The lights flickered. Emergency strips ignited along the baseboards, casting everything in sickly red. Shadows danced. Faces emerged, twisted with terror, slick with sweat. Alara's eyes adjusted, and she saw him. Hawk stood on the stage, calm, unhurried. He held no weapon, didn't need one. 2 men flanked him, rifles raised, scanning the crowd like wolves picking targets. Volkov saw him too. His hand went to his jacket, came out with the gun. Volkov, don't! He was already moving, fast, low, using the chaos as cover. Alara lost sight of him in the crush of bodies, then caught a flash of his jacket disappearing toward the stage. She started to follow. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun. Anton. His face was bleeding, a gash across his forehead dripping red into his eyes. We need to go, he said. Now. Volkov knows what he's doing. You don't. Move. He hauled her toward the side exit. Alara resisted, her heels skidding on the slick floor. She craned her neck, searching for Volkov in the red-lit nightmare. There. He was 10 feet from the stage, raising the gun. Hawk turned, looked directly at him, and smiled. It wasn't a taunt, it wasn't arrogance. It was recognition, like seeing an old friend. Volkov hesitated. Just for a second, just long enough. One of Hawk's men fired. The bullet caught Volkov in the shoulder. He spun, stumbled, hit the ground hard. The gun skittered away across the marble. Alara screamed. Anton's grip tightened. We have to go. No, we can't just... He's already dead if we stay. Move! He dragged her through the exit. The door slammed shut behind them, muffling the screams. They were in a service corridor now, concrete walls, fluorescent lights, the sound of their footsteps echoing too loud. Where are we going? Alara gasped. Anywhere but... The lights went out. Again. Complete darkness. Anton's hand disappeared from her arm. Anton? No answer. Alara's breathing filled her ears. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She reached out, fingers scraping rough concrete, trying to orient herself. A sound. Behind her. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Anton? She whispered. The footsteps stopped. A voice. Unfamiliar. Male. Cold. He's not going to help you. Alara spun. Saw nothing. Just black. Who are you? Someone who's been watching you for a long time, Alara Vance. Her blood went ice. The lights flickered back on, and standing 5 feet away was a man she'd never seen before. Tall, lean, dressed in black tactical gear. His face was scarred, a jagged line running from temple to jaw. In his hand was a gun, pointed casually at her chest. Behind him, on the floor, was Anton. Not moving. Blood pooling beneath his head. Alara's stomach lurched. You killed him. He was in the way. The man tilted his head. You should run now. What? It's more fun if you run. Alara didn't think. She bolted. Down the corridor, left, right. No idea where she was going. Just away. Her heels slowed her down. She kicked them off, kept running barefoot. The concrete tore at her feet. She didn't care. Behind her, the man's footsteps echoed. Not running. Walking, like he had all the time in the world. Alara hit a stairwell, flew down the steps 2 at a time. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed. First floor. She crashed through a door into a hallway. Offices, dark, empty. She ducked into one, pressed herself against the wall, hand over her mouth to muffle her breathing. The footsteps grew louder, closer, stopped right outside the door. Alara held her breath. The door opened. The man stepped in, looked around. His eyes scanned the room methodically, passed over the desk, the filing cabinet, the corner where Alara crouched in shadow. He smiled. Found you. Alara grabbed the nearest object, a stapler, and hurled it at his head. It hit him square in the temple. He staggered, swore. She ran, out the door, down another hallway. Her feet left bloody prints on the tile. She could hear him behind her now, faster, angrier. Dead end. A wall. No exit. No windows. Alara spun. The man appeared in the hallway. Blood trickled down his face from where the stapler had hit. He wiped it away with the back of his hand, looked at it, looked at her. That hurt. Good. He raised the gun. Hawk wants you alive, but he didn't say unharmed. Alara's mind raced. No weapon, no escape. Nothing but her and a man who'd killed Anton without blinking. She did the only thing she could think of. She talked. Why does he want me? The man paused. You don't know? Know what? You really think you're nobody? Just some bartender who got lucky? He laughed. It sounded like gravel in a blender. You're the whole reason this started. Alara's breath caught. What are you talking about? Ask Volkov, if he's still breathing. He aimed. The shot never came. Instead, the man jerked forward, his eyes going wide. He looked down, at the blade protruding from his chest. Blood bubbled at his lips. Behind him stood Dmitri. The big bodyguard yanked the knife out. The man collapsed, twitching once, then still. Dmitri looked at Alara. You okay? She couldn't speak, just nodded. Good. Boss needs you. Volkov's alive? Barely. Come on. Bas, they found Volkov in a maintenance room on the second floor. He was sitting against the wall, one hand pressed to his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. His face was pale, slick with sweat, but his eyes were sharp, focused. Took you long enough, he said when he saw Dmitri. Had to stop to save your girlfriend. She's not... Volkov's gaze shifted to Alara. Something in his expression softened. You're bleeding. Alara looked down. Her feet were torn up, glass and gravel embedded in the soles. She hadn't felt it until now. Now it hurt like hell. I'm fine. You're not. Neither are you. Volkov's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Fair. Dmitri crouched beside him. How bad? Through and through, missed the bone. Volkov grimaced as Dmitri pressed gauze to the wound. I'll live. Where's Hawk? Alara asked. Gone. Disappeared the second the lights came back on. Took Rostankov with him. And Sergio? Volkov's jaw tightened. Also gone. Alara sank against the wall. So we lost. Not yet. Volkov pulled out his phone with his good hand, typed something. I put a tracker on Rostankov before we took him the first time. Insurance. The phone beeped. A map appeared. A red dot, moving east. He's heading toward the docks, Volkov said. You can't go after him like this, Alara said. You're bleeding out. I've bled worse. That's not the point. Volkov met her eyes. The point is, if I don't end this tonight, Hawk wins. He takes everything. My territory, my people, my city. I don't get a second chance. Then let me go. Both Volkov and Dmitri stared at her. What? Dmitri said. I'll follow the tracker, find out where he's going, report back. Absolutely not, Volkov said. Why not? I'm the one he doesn't know, the one he's not expecting. You're also unarmed, untrained, and 5 minutes ago someone was hunting you through a building. And I'm still alive. Volkov shook his head. No. You don't have a choice. You can't move. Dmitri can't leave you. I'm all you've got. Silence. Volkov stared at her, then at the phone, then back at her. You find them, you observe, you do not engage. Understand? Yes. The second you see Hawk, you call me. You don't try to be a hero. You don't do anything stupid. Okay. Alara. His voice was sharp. I mean it. You die out there. That's on me. I can't. He stopped. Exhaled. Just don't die. Alara took the phone. I won't. She didn't know if that was true, but she said it anyway. The docks were a graveyard of rusted cranes and forgotten shipping containers. Alara moved through the shadows, the phone clutched in her hand, the red dot pulsing 200 yards ahead. The air smelled like salt and diesel and rotting fish. Waves slapped against the pilings, rhythmic and hollow. She'd stolen a jacket from a janitor's closet and a pair of boots that were 2 sizes too big. Her feet still hurt. She ignored it. The red dot stopped moving. Alara slowed. Ahead, a warehouse loomed. Lights glowed from inside, pale and flickering. Voices carried on the wind. She couldn't make out words, just tones. Calm. Controlled. She crept closer. Found a broken window. Peered through. Inside, the warehouse had been cleared out, empty except for a table in the center. Rostankov sat at it, hands folded. Across from him sat Hawk. Up close, he looked even more ordinary. The kind of man you'd pass on the street and forget 5 seconds later. But the way he sat, spine straight, hands still, eyes unblinking, made Alara's skin crawl. Sergio stood off to the side. He looked broken, hollow. And then a 4th person entered the frame. Alara's breath stopped. It was Anton. Not dead. Not bleeding out in a hallway. Alive. Walking. Talking to Hawk like they were old friends. Alara's mind fractured. Anton. Who'd protected her? Who'd dragged her out of the gala? Who'd told her to run? Anton worked for Hawk. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. She caught it, pressed herself tighter against the wall. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Inside, Hawk spoke. His voice was quiet. Alara strained to hear. Everything in place. Volkov's wounded, isolated, his networks fractured. By morning, the city's ours. Rostankov shifted. And the girl? Being handled. She saw too much. She saw exactly what I wanted her to see. Alara's stomach turned. Hawk continued. Volkov trusts her now, thinks she's an asset. That makes her the perfect leverage. When we bring him in, she'll be the reason he breaks. Anton spoke up. What if she doesn't go back to him? Hawk smiled. She will. She thinks she's saving him. That's what people like her do. They can't help themselves. Alara's hands shook. They'd played her. Every step, every move. From the moment she'd grabbed Marco's wrist, she'd been a piece on Hawk's board. And Volkov. Her chest tightened. Volkov didn't know. He thought Anton was loyal, thought his inner circle was clean. She had to warn him. She pulled back from the window, started to turn. A hand clamped over her mouth. She tried to scream. The hand tightened, an arm wrapped around her waist, lifting her off the ground. She thrashed, kicked, but whoever held her was too strong. They dragged her into the warehouse, threw her onto the concrete. Alara rolled, looked up. The scarred man from the hallway, the one Dmitri had stabbed. He wasn't dead, and he looked pissed. Found her outside, he said. Hawk stood, walked over, looked down at Alara. Hello, Alara. She spat at him. He didn't flinch, just pulled out a handkerchief, wiped his face. I expected better manners. Go to hell. Hawk crouched, eye level. You've been very useful, more than you know, but I'm afraid your part in this is over. Volkov's going to kill you. Volkov's going to beg me to let him die. Hawk's voice was ice. And you're going to help me make that happen. Alara lunged. She didn't get far. The scarred man grabbed her, slammed her back down. Her head cracked against the concrete. Stars burst across her vision. Careful, Hawk said mildly. We need her conscious. Anton stepped forward, looked down at her. His expression was unreadable. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Fuck you. You weren't supposed to get this involved. You were just supposed to be a witness. Someone who saw Marco. Someone Volkov would protect. Anton's jaw tightened. But you kept pushing, kept seeing things. You made yourself important. And now you're going to kill me for it. No. Hawk stood. Now you're going to call Volkov. Tell him where you are. Tell him you found me. And when he comes, because he will come, we'll be waiting. I won't. Hawk pulled out a phone, played a video. On the screen was a woman, mid-20s, tied to a chair, gagged, terrified. Alara's heart stopped. She knew that face. Her name is Maya, Hawk said. Your roommate from 3 years ago. You lived together for 6 months before you disappeared. Changed your name. Started over. Alara couldn't breathe. She's been very cooperative, Hawk continued. Told us all about you, your past. The people you left behind. He paused the video on Maya's tear-streaked face. You make the call. She lives. You don't? She dies. Slowly. Alara's vision blurred. You're a monster. I'm efficient. Hawk held out a phone. Call him. Alara's hand shook as she took it. She had no choice. She knew that. Maya didn't deserve this. Didn't deserve to die because Alara had tried to do the right thing. She dialed Volkov's number. He answered on the first ring. Alara? His voice cracked something inside her. I found them, she said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. The docks. Warehouse 12. A pause. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're lying. Tears burned her eyes. Just get here. Please. I'm on my way. The line went dead. Hawk took the phone. Good girl. Alara's chest heaved. Let Maya go. I did what you wanted. I will. After Volkov's dead. You're lying. Hawk's smile didn't reach his eyes. Probably. He walked away, gestured to Anton and the scarred man. Prep the site. I want clean sight lines. No exits. When Volkov walks in, he doesn't walk out. They moved, hauled equipment, set up positions. Alara sat on the cold floor, her back against a crate, and tried not to fall apart. She just sentenced Volkov to death, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. 20 minutes later, headlights cut through the dark. Hawk's men took positions. Rifles trained on the entrance. Anton crouched behind a stack of pallets. The scarred man perched on a catwalk, sniper rifle in hand. Alara was zip-tied to a support beam in the center of the room. Visible. Bait. She pulled at the restraints. The plastic bit into her wrists. Drew blood. The warehouse door opened. Volkov stepped through. Alone. No Dmitri. No backup. Just him. One arm hanging limp, the other holding a gun. He looked like death. Pale. Shaking. But his eyes were clear. They locked onto Alara. Let her go, he said. Hawk stepped out of the shadows. Lorenzo, so glad you could make it. Volkov's gun swung toward him. 3 red dots appeared on Volkov's chest, laser sights. He froze. Drop it, Hawk said. Volkov hesitated. Drop it, or my men put 3 rounds through your heart before you pull the trigger. Volkov's jaw clenched. He dropped the gun. Hawk walked over, picked it up, studied it. This was your father's, wasn't it? Volkov said nothing. I remember him. He tried to kill me once. Didn't work out for him either. Where is she? Volkov's voice was hoarse. Where's Maya? Alara's head snapped up. You know about her? Volkov didn't look at her. I know everything about you, Alara. I knew before you ever walked into Vigneto. The world tilted. What? Hawk laughed. Oh, this is delicious. You didn't tell her, did you? Tell me what? Alara's voice cracked. Volkov finally looked at her, and in his eyes was something she'd never seen before. Guilt. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? Hawk answered for him. For using you, from the very beginning. Alara's breath stopped. You weren't random, Alara, Hawk continued. You were selected. Volkov's been tracking you for 2 years, ever since you witnessed a murder in San Diego and disappeared. No. The man you saw killed was one of mine, Hawk said. You were supposed to testify, but you ran, changed your name, hid. He smiled. Volkov found you, planted you at Vigneto, waited for the right moment to activate you. Alara's mind spun. That's not... He didn't... Marco wasn't there by accident, Hawk said. Volkov sent him. Told him to poison the drink. Told him you'd stop it. And when you did, you'd become exactly what Volkov needed. A witness. Someone he could claim to protect. Someone who'd trust him. Alara looked at Volkov. Tell me he's lying. Volkov's silence was answer enough. You used me. Yes. The word hit like a bullet. Why? Because I needed someone Hawk would underestimate. Someone who could get close without being suspected. You were perfect. Alara's hands balled into fists. I trusted you. I know. I thought, her voice broke. I thought you were protecting me. I was. That part was real. Nothing about this is real. She laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. I'm just another piece in your fucking game. Alara, don't. Tears streamed down her face. Don't say my name. Don't pretend you care. Volkov's expression cracked. I do care. That's the problem. Touching, Hawk said, but irrelevant. Anton, if you would. Anton stepped forward, raised his gun, pointed it at Volkov's head. I'm sorry, boss, Anton said, but you should have seen this coming. Volkov didn't look surprised, didn't look betrayed. He looked tired. How long? He asked. 3 years. That's a long con. Hawk pays better. He won't pay you at all when you're dead. Anton smiled. I'll take my chances. He pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing. Anton's face went white. He pulled again. Again. Nothing. Volkov's mouth curved. You think I'm stupid? I've known about you for 6 months. Every gun you've touched since then has been loaded with duds. Anton staggered back. Hawk's expression didn't change. Clever, but ultimately pointless. He gestured. The scarred man fired from the catwalk. The bullet hit Volkov in the leg. He went down hard, gasping. Alara screamed. Hawk walked over, stood above Volkov. You always were too arrogant for your own good. Volkov coughed. Blood flecked his lips. And you always talked too much. Any last words? Volkov looked at Alara. I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better. Then he looked back at Hawk. But you're still going to lose. Hawk frowned. How do you figure? Because I didn't come alone. The warehouse exploded. Not literally, but close. Doors burst open. Windows shattered. 20 men poured in. Volkov's men. Guns raised, shouting, firing. Chaos erupted. Hawk's men returned fire. Bodies dropped. Blood sprayed. The air filled with smoke and noise and death. Alara pulled at her restraints. The zip tie wouldn't break. A bullet hit the beam above her head. Wood splintered. She screamed Volkov's name. He was crawling toward her, dragging himself across the concrete, leaving a trail of blood. Hold on, he gasped. He reached her, pulled a knife from his boot, cut the zip tie. Alara's hands came free. We need to go, she said. Can't. Leg's done. I don't care. I'm not leaving you. He grabbed her face, forced her to look at him. I lied to you. I used you. You should hate me. I do. Then why are you still here? Alara's throat tightened. Because I'm an idiot. Volkov's laugh turned into a cough. Yeah, you are. An explosion rocked the building. Fire bloomed in the corner. Smoke billowed. Alara, run. No. Please, she hauled him to his feet, draped his arm over her shoulders, started moving. They made it 10 feet before Hawk stepped in front of them. His suit was torn. His face was bloody, but his gun was steady. End of the line, he said. He aimed. Volkov shoved Alara aside. The gun fired. But the bullet didn't hit Volkov. It hit Sergio. The man had appeared from nowhere, thrown himself between Hawk and Volkov. The bullet took him in the chest. He collapsed. Hawk stared. You... Sergio smiled. Blood bubbled between his teeth. Told you. She's alive. Nebraska. He died with his eyes open. Hawk's face twisted. He raised the gun again. Volkov was faster. The knife buried itself in Hawk's throat. Hawk staggered, dropped the gun, grabbed at the knife. Blood poured between his fingers. He fell, twitched once, went still. Volkov sagged. Alara caught him. Is it over? She whispered. No. Volkov's voice was weak. It's never over. The building groaned. Fire spread. The ceiling started to collapse. We have to move, Alara said. She dragged him toward the exit, through smoke and fire and bodies. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed. They burst out into the night air, collapsed onto the pavement. Behind them, the warehouse roared. Flames reached toward the sky. Alara lay on her back, gasping, staring up at the stars. Beside her, Volkov's breathing was shallow, ragged. Volkov? No answer. Volkov, stay with me. His eyes fluttered open, focused on her. You're still here, he murmured. Yeah. Why? Alara's tears mixed with soot and blood. I don't know. He smiled, faint, broken. You're a terrible liar. His eyes closed, and for the second time that night, Alara thought he was dead. But his chest still rose, still fell, and somewhere in the wreckage, sirens began to wail. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and death. Alara sat in a plastic chair outside the operating room, her hands still stained with Volkov's blood. She'd refused to wash them, refused to move. The nurses had tried twice to get her to clean up, change clothes, eat something. She told them to fuck off. 4 hours. That's how long he'd been in surgery. 4 hours of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and doctors in scrubs rushing past with faces that gave nothing away. 4 hours of wondering if the man who'd lied to her, used her, saved her, was going to make it through the night. She didn't know what she wanted the answer to be. Dmitri stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the city. He'd shown up an hour after the ambulance, hadn't asked questions, just took position like a sentinel and hadn't moved since. You should rest, he said without turning around. I'm fine. You're covered in blood and haven't blinked in 20 minutes. Alara looked down at her hands. The blood had dried to a rust-brown crust under her nails. Volkov's blood. Sergio's blood. Maybe her own. She couldn't tell anymore. What happens now? She asked quietly. Dmitri was silent for a long moment. Depends if he lives. And if he doesn't, then the city tears itself apart. Every crew, every territory, every deal Volkov kept in balance, it all goes to war. He finally turned to look at her. And you become the most valuable person in this city. Alara's head snapped up. What? You were there. You saw everything. You know who betrayed who, who's dirty, who's clean. That information is worth more than gold right now. His expression was unreadable. People will kill for it, or kill you to bury it. I don't want any part of this. Too late. You're in it. The operating room doors swung open. A surgeon stepped out, pulling off blood-stained gloves. His face was drawn, exhausted. Alara stood. Her legs nearly gave out. How is he? The surgeon's eyes were kind, tired. He's alive. Barely. The bullet in his leg shattered the femur. We had to put in a rod. The shoulder wound reopened during the firefight. He lost a lot of blood. Between that and the smoke inhalation. He paused. The next 24 hours are critical. If he makes it through, he's got a chance. Can I see him? Not yet. He's in recovery, sedated. Maybe in a few hours. The surgeon left. Alara sank back into the chair. Relief and dread twisted in her gut like barbed wire. He was alive. For now. Dmitri's phone buzzed. He looked at it. His jaw tightened. What? Alara asked. Rostankov's dead. Found in his car an hour ago. Single gunshot to the head. Alara's blood went cold. Hawks people? Maybe. Or someone tying up loose ends. Dmitri pocketed the phone. Either way, the board's shifting, fast. What about Maya? Who? My friend. The woman Hawk threatened. Is she? Already handled. Volkov had people on her the moment you made that call. She's safe. Doesn't even know she was in danger. Alara's throat tightened. Even bleeding out, even betrayed, Volkov had protected her, had made sure the one person she cared about stayed alive. She hated him for lying. She hated herself for still caring. I need air, she said. She walked out before Dmitri could stop her. The hospital roof was freezing. Alara stood at the edge, looking out over the city. Dawn was breaking, pink and gold bleeding across the skyline. Somewhere down there, people were waking up, going to work, living normal lives. She'd forgotten what normal felt like. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept. Hello? Silence. Then breathing, steady, calm. A voice. Male. Familiar. You're a survivor, Alara Vance. I respect that. Her blood turned to ice. You're dead. I saw you die. Silas Hawk's laugh was soft, amused. You saw a body, not the same thing. Alara's hand shook. How? I've been doing this a long time. You think I walk into a fight without an exit strategy? His voice was smooth, unhurried. The man who died had my face, my build. Clever work, really. Even fooled Volkov. Where are you? Close. Always close. A pause. You did well tonight. Better than I expected. Volkov chose his weapon wisely. I'm not a weapon. Everyone's a weapon. The question is who's holding you. His tone shifted, darker. Volkov's finished. Even if he survives, his empire's fracturing. Anton wasn't the only one I turned. By tomorrow there won't be anything left of his organization but ashes. Then why call me? Because I'm offering you a choice. Hawk's voice dropped to something almost gentle. Walk away. Leave the city. Start over. I'll make sure no one comes after you. You'll be free. And if I don't? Then you stay in this world. And this world eats people like you alive. Alara's grip tightened on the phone. You killed people. Burned them alive. Tortured them. You think I'd trust anything you offer? I think you're smart enough to know when you're beaten. Hawk paused. You're not a criminal, Alara. You're not a killer. You're just someone who made one bad choice and got dragged into hell for it. I'm giving you a way out. Go to hell. Already there. Question is, are you coming with me or crawling back to Volkov? The line went dead. Alara stood there, staring at the phone, her heart hammering. Hawk was alive, and he'd just declared war. Threaten. When she got back to Volkov's room, he was awake. Barely. His eyes were half open, unfocused. Tubes ran from his arms. Machines beeped steadily beside him. He looked small in the hospital bed. Fragile, human. Alara pulled up a chair, sat. You look like shit, she said quietly. Volkov's mouth twitched. You should see the other guy. I did. He's alive. That got his attention. His eyes sharpened, focused on her. Hawk? Called me 10 minutes ago. Said the body we found was a decoy. Volkov's jaw clenched. He tried to sit up, gasped, fell back against the pillows. Don't, Alara said. You'll tear the stitches. Where is he? I don't know. He didn't say. What did he say? Alara hesitated. That you're finished. That your empire's collapsing. That I should walk away while I still can. Volkov stared at the ceiling. His breathing was ragged. He's right. About which part? All of it. He closed his eyes. Anton wasn't the only traitor. There are others. People I trusted. People who've been waiting for me to show weakness. His voice cracked. And now I have. So what do we do? Volkov's eyes opened, locked onto hers. We? You think I'm walking away after everything? You should. Probably. Alara leaned forward. But I'm not. Why? Because Hawk threatened someone I care about. Because he killed people who didn't deserve it. Because he's a monster, and someone needs to stop him. She paused. And because you're the only one who knows how. Volkov studied her face, looking for the lie. The crack. He didn't find one. I used you, he said quietly. Everything Hawk said was true. I tracked you down. Planted you at Viñedo. Set up Marco. I knew you'd stop the poisoning because that's who you are. Someone who can't watch people die. His voice was raw. I'm not the hero in this story, Alara. I'm just another monster. I know. Then why? Because monsters like you can be pointed at monsters like him. She held his gaze. And because somewhere in all of this, you stopped pretending I was just a tool. You protected Maya. You tried to save me even when it cost you everything. That has to count for something. Volkov's throat worked. It doesn't change what I did. No, but it changes what happens next. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out. His hand found hers, squeezed once. You're insane. So are you. Good. His grip tightened. Because what I'm about to ask you to do is going to get us both killed. The plan was suicide. That's what Dmitri said when Volkov laid it out 3 hours later. They were in a private wing of the hospital now, guards posted at every entrance. Volkov had refused more painkillers, said he needed his head clear. He looked like hell, pale, sweating, shaking, but his mind was sharp as ever. Hawk's hosting a meeting tomorrow night, Volkov said. He pulled up a map on a tablet. Location's a penthouse downtown, the Meridian building, top floor. He's gathering what's left of my lieutenants, offering them deals. Territory in exchange for loyalty. How do you know this? Alara asked. Because 3 of them already told me. They're still loyal. He grimaced. For now. Dmitri crossed his arms. And you want to walk in there, in your condition. And do what exactly? End it. Volkov's voice was cold. I take Hawk's head, in front of everyone, show them what happens to traitors. You can barely stand. Then I'll sit. Point is, I show up. I don't hide. I don't run. His eyes were hard. The moment I do, I lose everything. You'll die. Maybe. Volkov looked at Alara. That's where she comes in. Alara's stomach dropped. What? Hawk doesn't know you're still with me. He thinks you're scared, alone. He offered you a way out, which means he still sees you as harmless. Volkov leaned forward. You go in first, as a guest. Someone looking to make a deal. Get close to him. When I make my move, you make yours. You want me to kill him? I want you to distract him long enough for me to. That's insane. It's the only play we have. Dmitri shook his head. This is suicide for both of you. You have a better idea? Volkov's voice was sharp. Silence. Thought not. Volkov turned back to Alara. I won't force you. You walk away right now. I'll make sure you're protected. New identity. New city. Hawk will never find you. And you? I do this alone. And probably die. Alara looked at him. At the man who dragged her into hell and somehow made her want to stay. At the scars and the blood and the exhaustion that ran bone deep. When do we leave? She asked. Volkov's expression softened. Just for a second. Tomorrow, sundown. They spent the next day preparing. Volkov made calls, pulled favors, reactivated old contacts. By noon, he had 20 men willing to back him. By evening, 30. It wasn't enough. Not against what Hawk had built. But it was something. Alara trained with Dmitri, basic combat. How to hold a gun. How to aim. How to pull the trigger without flinching. She flinched anyway. Again, Dmitri said. She fired. The target's shoulder exploded. Not the head, not the heart. Close enough. You're not going to be a marksman in one day, Dmitri said. Just point and shoot. Don't think. Don't hesitate. Easy for you to say. No, it's not. He reloaded the gun, handed it back. But you do it anyway, because the alternative is dying. Alara fired again. This time, the shot hit center mass. Dmitri nodded. Better. Bolt. The Meridian building was glass and steel, 40 stories of corporate power and old money. Alara walked in through the front entrance at 8 p.m. She wore a black dress, simple and elegant, borrowed from someone in Volkov's network. Her hair was pulled back. Makeup covered the bruises. She looked like she belonged. Security stopped her at the elevator. Name? Alara Vance. I'm here for the meeting. The guard checked a list, nodded. 40th floor. The elevator ride felt like falling. Her heart hammered. Her palms sweated. The gun tucked against her thigh felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The doors opened. The penthouse was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, leather furniture, a bar in the corner. 30 people milled around, drinks in hand, conversations humming. She recognized some of them. Volkov's lieutenants, or former lieutenants. And there, by the window, was Hawk. He looked exactly the same. Calm, controlled. He held a glass of scotch and talked to a man in an expensive suit, gesturing casually like they were discussing the weather. He saw her. Their eyes met. He smiled, walked over. Alara, I'm glad you came. Her throat was dry. You said I had a choice. And you chose wisely. He gestured to the room. Welcome to the future. Volkov's empire is dead. This is what rises from the ashes. And me? You're free, like I promised. He handed her a drink. To new beginnings. Alara took the glass. Didn't drink. Where's Volkov? Hawk's smile widened. Dead, if he's smart. Dying, if he's not. You sound disappointed. I am. I wanted to watch. Alara's fingers tightened on the glass. You really think it's over? I know it is. Hawk leaned closer. He lost the moment he trusted you. You were the crack in his armor, and I drove a knife right through it. The penthouse doors exploded open. Volkov walked in. He shouldn't have been walking, shouldn't have been standing, but there he was, leaning on a cane, Dmitri at his side, and behind them, 20 armed men. The room went silent. Hawk's smile didn't fade. Lorenzo, you look terrible. You look alive. Volkov's voice was steady, cold. Let's fix that. Guns came up. On both sides. 30 people pointing weapons at 30 others. Mexican standoff. Hawk raised a hand. Gentlemen, let's not be hasty. We're all reasonable people here. You burned my warehouse, killed my men, turned my own people against me. Volkov took a step forward. There's nothing reasonable about what happens next. Then let's talk. Hawk gestured to the room. You see these men? They were yours. Now they're mine. You're outnumbered, outgunned. Even if you kill me, you don't walk out of here alive. I don't care. Hawk's eyes narrowed. You should, because I have something you want. He snapped his fingers. A door opened. 2 men dragged someone out. Alara's breath stopped. Maya, bound, gagged, terrified. You said she was safe, Alara whispered. Volkov's face went white. She was. I had people. Your people work for me now, Hawk said. Surprise. He walked over to Maya, pressed a gun to her head. New deal, Lorenzo. You walk away, right now. Leave the city, never come back. And she lives. Volkov stared at Maya, then at Alara. Don't, Alara said. Don't you dare. She's innocent. So were the 3 men you lost in the warehouse. So was Marco. So was everyone Hawk killed to get here. Alara stepped forward. You walk away now. He wins. And he'll keep winning until there's nothing left. And if she dies, that's on me. It's on him. Alara's voice shook. Not you. Him. Hawk cocked the gun. Clock's ticking. Volkov closed his eyes, opened them. Let her go. That's not... Let her go, and I'll give you what you really want. Hawk's expression shifted, curious. Which is? Me. Alive. On my knees. Begging. Volkov's voice was flat, dead. You want to break me. You want the city to see Lorenzo Volkov broken. That's worth more than my death. Hawk considered this, then lowered the gun. You've got a deal. Volkov dropped the cane, sank to his knees. The room erupted. Shouts, gasps, guns wavering. Dmitri lunged forward. Boss, don't... Volkov raised a hand. Stand down. Dmitri froze. Hawk walked over, stood above Volkov, smiled down at him. Beg. Volkov looked up at him, and then he looked at Alara. Their eyes met. She saw the play, saw what he needed her to do. Hawk's attention was on Volkov. His gun was lowered, his guard was down. Alara moved, fast. She pulled the gun from her thigh, raised it, fired. The shot took Hawk in the chest. He staggered, looked down at the blood blooming across his white shirt, looked at Alara. You? She fired again, and again, and again, until the gun clicked empty. Hawk fell. The room exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted. People scattered. Dmitri shoved Volkov behind cover. Alara hit the ground, her ears ringing. Bodies dropped. Blood sprayed. The penthouse became a war zone. And through it all, Alara crawled toward Maya, cut her bonds, ripped off the gag. Are you okay? Maya sobbed, nodded, clung to her. Get her out! Volkov shouted. Dmitri grabbed Maya, hauled her toward the exit. Alara turned, saw Hawk. He was still moving, still breathing, one hand pressed to his chest, the other reaching for a gun. Alara lunged, kicked the gun away, dropped onto him, pressed her hands against the wound, not to save him, to make sure he felt it. You lose, she whispered. Hawk's eyes met hers. Blood bubbled at his lips. No one wins this game. Maybe, but you're the one dying. Hawk's laugh was wet, broken. So are you. He grabbed her wrist, pulled her close, whispered something in her ear. Then his grip went slack. His eyes went empty. Silas Hawk was dead. Alara sat back, stared at her hands, at the blood. The gunfire stopped. The silence was deafening. Volkov limped over, looked down at Hawk's body, then at Alara. What did he say? Alara's voice was hollow. He said there's always another Hawk, always someone waiting to take the throne. Volkov was quiet. Then he offered her his hand. Not tonight. Alara took it, let him pull her to her feet. Around them, the penthouse was a graveyard. Bodies, smoke, shattered glass. Volkov's men stood over the survivors, guns trained, waiting for orders. Volkov looked at them, at the men who'd betrayed him, who'd sold him out for money or fear or power. Let them go, he said. Dmitri's head snapped toward him. What? You heard me. Let them go. Boss, they'll tell everyone what happened here tonight. They'll tell them Hawk is dead, that I'm still standing, that anyone who comes for me ends up like him. Volkov's voice was steel. Let them spread the word. Slowly the guns lowered, the survivors ran, and when they were gone, Volkov turned to Alara. You saved my life. Again. You saved mine first. We're even. No. Alara's voice was quiet. We're not even close. Volkov's expression softened. Then what are we? Alara looked at him. At the man who'd lied to her and used her and somehow, impossibly, become the only person in this world she trusted. I don't know, she said, but I guess we're about to find out. Sirens wailed in the distance. Volkov took her hand. Time to go. They walked out together, into the night, into whatever came next. And for the first time in her life, Alara wasn't invisible. She was seen, she was chosen, and she had absolutely no idea if that was salvation or damnation. But she was about to find the safe house was a concrete box 30 miles outside the city. No windows. One door. A single bulb hanging from the ceiling that flickered every few seconds like a dying heartbeat. Volkov sat on a metal chair, his leg elevated, his face gray with pain. Dmitri stood guard by the door. Maya huddled in the corner, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes hollow. Alara paced. She couldn't stop moving, couldn't stop seeing Hawk's face as the light left his eyes, couldn't stop hearing what he'd whispered. There's always another Hawk. Her hands were clean now. She'd scrubbed them raw in a gas station bathroom 20 miles back. But she could still feel the blood. Sticky, warm, permanent. Sit down, Volkov said quietly. You're going to wear a hole in the floor. I killed him. Yes. I shot him 4 times. I counted 5. Alara stopped, looked at him. Does it get easier? Volkov's expression was unreadable. No. Then how do you do it? You don't think about it. You just survive, and then you live with it. He shifted in the chair, winced. Or you don't live with it. Those are the options. Alara sank against the wall, slid down until she was sitting on the cold concrete. What did he mean? What he said before he died? Exactly what you think. Volkov's voice was flat. Killing Hawk didn't end this. It just opened the door for the next predator, someone smarter, someone who learned from his mistakes. So it was all for nothing. No. Volkov leaned forward. It bought us time, proved we're still dangerous. That's worth something. Is it? He didn't answer. Maya spoke for the first time in hours. Her voice was small, broken. Why me? Everyone looked at her. Why did he take me? I don't even know you people. I haven't seen Alara in 3 years. Why did he think I mattered? Alara's chest tightened. Because I mattered to you. Once. And that was enough. That's insane. That's how this world works. Alara looked at her hands. I'm sorry. I never wanted you involved in this. But I'm involved. And now what? I just go home? Pretend this didn't happen? Wait for the next psychopath to put a gun to my head? No. Volkov's voice cut through the room. You disappear. New name. New city. New life. I'll arrange it. You'll be untraceable. Maya stared at him. And I'm supposed to trust you? You're supposed to trust that keeping you alive is in my best interest. Alara cares about you. That makes you leverage, which means everyone in this city would kill to get to you. He paused. Unless you don't exist anymore. I have a life. A job. Friends? You had a life. Now you have a choice, vanish and live, or stay and die. Volkov's eyes were cold. I won't sugarcoat it. That's the reality. Maya looked at Alara. Is he always like this? Pretty much. And you're with him? Alara hesitated. I don't know what I am. Maya stood. The blanket fell from her shoulders. I want to go home. You can't, Volkov said. Watch me. She walked toward the door. Dmitri stepped in front of it. Move, Maya said. Dmitri didn't move. Maya's face crumpled. Please, I just want to go home. Alara stood, walked over, put a hand on Maya's shoulder. I know, but he's right. If you go back, they'll find you, and they'll use you to get to me, or to him, or just because they can. Her voice cracked. I can't let that happen. Maya's tears came hard and fast. She collapsed against Alara, sobbing. Alara held her, let her cry, let her break. Because that's what this world did. It broke people. And the ones who survived had to learn to live with the pieces. By dawn, Maya had agreed. Dmitri made the arrangements, a new identity, a small town in Montana, a job at a library, quiet, safe, boring. Everything Maya's old life wasn't. Volkov wired her enough money to start over, gave her a number to call if she ever needed help, made it clear she should never use it unless the world was ending. Maya hugged Alara at the door. I'm sorry, Alara whispered. For what? For everything. For dragging you into this. For not being there when you needed me. For... Stop. Maya pulled back, looked her in the eyes. You saved my life. Twice. Once when you disappeared 3 years ago, and whoever you were running from didn't find me. And again last night. She managed a weak smile. We're even. We're not. Close enough. They held each other for a long moment. Then Maya got in the car and drove away. Alara watched until the taillights disappeared. Then she turned back to Volkov. What now? Now we go back. To the city? To finish this. 1. The drive back took 2 hours. Volkov slept most of the way, his head against the window, his breathing shallow. Alara watched him, studied the lines on his face, the scar on his cheek, the exhaustion that had carved itself into his bones. He'd almost died for her. Multiple times. And she still didn't know if she could forgive him for lying. Dmitri caught her eye in the rearview mirror. He's not a good man, Dmitri said quietly. I know. But he's not the worst either. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Dmitri shrugged. It's supposed to be the truth. You decide what to do with it. They reached the city as the sun climbed over the skyline. The streets were waking up. Coffee shops opening, people heading to work. Life continuing like the world hadn't almost ended last night. Volkov woke when the car stopped. Where are we? The penthouse, Dmitri said. It's secure, for now. They rode the elevator up in silence. When the doors opened, the penthouse looked the same. Glass. Steel. The city spread out below like a kingdom. Volkov's kingdom. Or what was left of it. He walked to the window, stared out. How many did we lose? He asked. 15 dead, 8 in the hospital, 3 missing. Dmitri's voice was flat. The rest are waiting for orders. And the lieutenants? The ones who didn't betray you are still loyal. The ones who did are either dead or running. Good. Volkov turned. Call a meeting. Everyone who's left, tonight. I want them here. What are you going to tell them? The truth. Dmitri left. Alara stayed. Volkov looked at her. You should go. Where? Anywhere but here. You've done enough, more than enough. You don't get to decide that. Alara saw. Stop. She crossed the room, stood in front of him. You brought me into this. You don't get to push me out now because it's convenient. I'm not pushing you out. I'm trying to save you. From what? From becoming me. His voice was raw. You killed someone last night. You think that doesn't change you? You think you can just walk away and pretend it didn't happen? I know it changed me. I'm not stupid. Then you know staying here means more blood, more death, more nights where you can't sleep because you see their faces. Volkov's hands balled into fists. I don't want that for you. What do you want for me? He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I want you to have a life. A real one. Not this. Alara's throat tightened. And you? I'm already gone. Have been for a long time. She reached out, touched his face. He flinched, then leaned into her hand. You're not gone, she said softly. Not completely. How do you know? Because if you were, you wouldn't care what happens to me. Volkov's eyes closed. That's the problem. I care too much. Alara didn't know who moved first, but suddenly they were kissing, hard, desperate, like they were both drowning and the other was air. His hands tangled in her hair, her fingers dug into his shoulders. The world narrowed to the taste of him, the heat, the pain and the need and the absolute insanity of wanting someone who'd destroyed your life and rebuilt it in the same breath. They broke apart, gasping. Volkov's forehead pressed against hers. This is a bad idea, he whispered. Probably the worst. We should stop. Yeah. Neither of them moved. And then the moment shattered. Volkov's phone rang. He pulled back, answered, listened. His expression went cold. When? A pause. I'll be there. He hung up. What? Alara asked. Rostankov wasn't working alone. He had a partner, someone higher up. Volkov's jaw tightened. The mayor. Alara's blood went cold. The mayor's dirty? Dirty doesn't begin to cover it. He's been on Hawk's payroll for 2 years, helped him move product, launder money, bury bodies. Volkov grabbed his coat. And tonight, he's hosting a press conference, blaming me for everything that happened at the gala, calling me a terrorist. He's trying to turn the city against you. He's succeeding. Volkov headed for the door. I need to stop him before he buries me. How? Volkov looked back at her. By making him confess. Publicly. That's insane. It's the only way. The press conference was at City Hall. Reporters packed the room. Cameras, microphones. The mayor stood at a podium, smiling that polished, practiced smile, flanked by police and city officials. He was in the middle of a speech when Volkov walked in. The room went silent. Every camera swung toward him. The mayor's smile faltered. Security? Don't! Volkov's voice cut through the room. You call security, and I start talking. And trust me, you don't want that. The mayor's face went pale. Volkov walked up to the podium, stood beside him, looked directly into the cameras. My name is Lorenzo Volkov, and I'm here to tell you the truth. The mayor tried to step away. Volkov grabbed his arm, held him in place. This man, Volkov said, gesturing to the mayor, has been lying to you for years. He took money from criminals, protected traffickers, turned a blind eye to murder, and when someone tried to expose him, he had them killed. That's a lie, the mayor stammered. Is it? Volkov pulled out a phone, played a recording, the mayor's voice, clear, unmistakable. I don't care how many people die. Just make sure it doesn't trace back to me. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. The mayor tried to run. Police grabbed him. Volkov turned to the cameras. I'm not a hero. I'm not innocent. But I'm not the only monster in this city, and I'm done pretending otherwise. He walked out. Alara was waiting by the car. Did it work? She asked. We'll find out. By morning, the mayor was in custody. The news ran the story nonstop. Corruption, conspiracy, cover-ups. Volkov's name was mentioned, but so were a dozen others. The rot spread wide. And in the chaos, Volkov rebuilt. He called in favors, made deals, consolidated power. Within a week, he'd reclaimed most of his territory. Within a month, the city was his again. But it was different now, quieter, more careful. He didn't trust as easily, didn't forgive as quickly. And Alara was at his side through all of it. She became his eyes, his memory, the person who saw patterns no one else did. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was essential, and she hated it, and she loved it, and she didn't know which feeling was going to kill her first. 3 months after Hawk died, Alara stood on the penthouse balcony staring out at the city. Volkov joined her, handed her a drink. You've been quiet, he said. I've been thinking. About? Whether I want to stay. Volkov was silent. I've been here for months, Alara continued, and I still don't know what I'm doing, if I'm helping, if I'm just another piece in your game. You're not a piece. Then what am I? Volkov looked at her, really looked at her. You're the only person in this city I trust, the only one who sees me as something other than a weapon or a threat. He paused. You're my anchor. Alara's chest tightened. That's a lot of pressure. I know. And if you want to leave, I won't stop you. Will you protect me, like you did Maya? Always. Alara turned back to the city. Let the wind hit her face. Let the lights blur. I don't want to leave, she said quietly. Then don't. But I don't want to be your anchor either. I want to be... She stopped, searching for the word. What? Myself. Whoever that is. Volkov stepped closer. Then be yourself. Here. With me. And if that version of myself can't live in your world, then we'll figure it out, together. Alara looked at him, at the man who'd lied to her and used her and somehow, impossibly, had become the only person who made her feel real. Okay, she said. Okay? I'll stay. For now. Volkov smiled. Faint, genuine. For now is enough. 6 months later, the city felt different, calmer. The violence had dropped. The gangs had stopped fighting for scraps and started negotiating. Volkov's iron grip had softened into something more like order, and Alara had found her place in it. She ran intelligence, gathered information, identified threats before they became problems. She was good at it, better than she'd ever been at being invisible, because now being seen meant being powerful. But power came with a price. She'd killed 2 more people in those 6 months, both in self-defense, both necessary. It didn't make it easier. She still saw their faces, still woke up at 3 a.m. gasping, reaching for a gun that wasn't there. Volkov understood. He didn't try to fix it, just held her when the nightmares got bad. Let her break. Let her rebuild. They never talked about what they were. Lovers, partners, survivors. Maybe all 3. Maybe none. One night, as they lay in bed, the city lights filtering through the windows, Alara asked the question that had been burning in her chest for months. Do you regret it? Bringing me into this? Volkov was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Every day. Alara's breath caught. But I'd do it again, he continued, because you saved my life in more ways than one. I don't feel like I saved anything. You did. He turned to face her. Before you, I was just surviving, going through the motions, waiting for the next hawk to put a bullet in my head. His hand found hers. You made me want to live again. That's not nothing. Alara's throat tightened. What if I'm not strong enough for this? You are. You've proven that. What if I break? Then I'll put you back together, the way you did for me. Alara closed her eyes, let the words sink in. I'm terrified, she whispered. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. That's what you said the first night. It's still true. Alara opened her eyes, looked at him. I don't know if I love you or hate you. Volkov's smile was sad. Most days I don't either. But you're here. So are you. And that somehow was enough. 1 year after the night at Vigneto, Alara stood behind the bar again. Not the same bar. A new one. Smaller, quieter. A place Volkov owned but didn't advertise. She didn't have to work there. Volkov had offered her a dozen other positions. Security, strategy, operations. But she chose the bar because it reminded her of who she used to be. Before the blood. Before the bullets. Before she became someone people feared. She poured drinks. Listened to conversations. Watched people. And sometimes late at night she'd see someone who looked scared. Nervous. Like they were about to make a choice that would change their life. And she'd remember the night she grabbed Marco's wrist, the night she stopped being invisible, the night everything changed, and she'd wonder, if she could go back, would she do it differently? The answer was always the same, no. Because for all the pain, all the blood, all the nightmares, she was alive, really, truly alive, for the first time in her life. Volkov walked into the bar just before closing, sat down at the far end, the same spot he'd sat that first night. Alara approached. What are you drinking? Whiskey, redbreast, neat. She poured it, set it in front of him. He didn't pick it up, just looked at her. You ever think about leaving? He asked. Every day? And? And I'm still here. Why? Alara leaned against the bar. Because I don't know who I am without this anymore. Without you. That's not a good reason to stay. No, but it's an honest one. Volkov smiled, picked up the glass, took a sip. You're different than you were a year ago. So are you. Better or worse? Alara considered. Both. Fair. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from surviving hell together. Finally, Alara asked, What happens now? Now? Volkov set down the glass. Now we keep going, keep building, keep fighting, until someone takes us down or we die of old age. That's a terrible plan. It's the only one we've got. Alara laughed. It sounded lighter than it had in months. You know what the worst part is? She said. What? I think I'm okay with that. Volkov stood, walked around the bar, stood close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. You're not the same person you were a year ago, he said quietly. I know. You're stronger, sharper, more dangerous. Is that a compliment? It's the truth. He paused. But you're also still you, still the woman who couldn't watch someone die, who saved a man she had every reason to let bleed out. His hand cupped her face. Don't lose that. No matter what this world throws at you, don't lose that. Alara's eyes burned. What if I already have? You haven't. I'd know. How? Because I lost it years ago, and I see the difference every time I look at you. She leaned into his touch. Let herself have this moment, this fragile, impossible moment where the monster and the witness pretended they could be something else. I don't know how this ends, she whispered. Neither do I. Does that scare you? Volkov's thumb traced her cheekbone. Terrifies me. Good, Alara said. Fear keeps you sharp. He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound filled the empty bar, and for the first time in a year, Alara felt something close to peace. Not happiness, not safety, just the quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. In a world of wolves, she'd learned to see, and that was enough. The city breathed on, velvet and neon, secrets and blood. The same game with different players. Volkov's empire stood, scarred but standing, stronger than before. And Alara Vance, the ghost who became a weapon, stood beside him. Not innocent, not untouched, but alive, chosen, free. In the end, she hadn't survived by hiding. She'd survived by learning to fight, by learning when to save a life and when to take one, by learning that the line between monster and survivor was thinner than she'd ever imagined. And sometimes, the only way to stay human was to embrace the parts of yourself that weren't. She didn't know if that made her a hero, didn't care. She was a survivor, and in a city that ate people alive, that was the only thing that mattered. The bar closed, the lights dimmed, and Alara Vance walked out into the night, hand in hand with a monster, ready for whatever came next. Because the game never ended, the players just got better, and she'd learned to play.